Hi there, Brenda here. This month I'm going to read out of the book by Wayne Dyer. There's a spiritual solution for every problem, to every problem. I remember loving this book a long time ago when I read it, and I had written it down in my notes as my favorite Wayne Dyer book, all around favorite. And I remember why now. I didn't remember why I'd written it down before. But part 2 of this book is called Putting Spiritual Problem Solving into Action, and he uses the prayer of St. Francis. And so he's got the prayer of St. Francis here. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. And so I would like to read chapter 8 from here, and that is the passage, where there is hatred, let me sow love. He says, as you examine the bag of troubles that are your unique problems, keep in mind 3 words written by St. Paul in his letters to the Corinthians. Love never fails. Ponder these 3 words while asking yourself if you can think of any exceptions. Never means what it says, never. I think you will come to the same conclusion I did. Whenever I am caught in a perceived problem, sending love never fails. Whatever you perceive to be your problem, you can find a solution in these 3 straightforward, no-nonsense words. Love never fails. This holds true even in situations where hatred seems to be the problem. I take a stand on hatred that is consistent with what I have presented throughout this book. The presence of a belief in hatred is a major source of most troubles. At first, this may seem incomprehensible to you. Nevertheless, I believe examining how you think about hatred will help you to do what the title of this chapter suggests. Sowing love means dissolving the illusion of hatred by becoming a delivery system for love. When you can do this, you are on the path of accessing spiritual solutions for all problems. What is hatred? You can see the contending forces of good and evil, love and hatred, everywhere. Many believe that these 2 opposing forces in the world are God versus the devil. I have spent considerable time in this book attempting to disavow such a preposterous notion. How is it possible for both God and the devil to exist if there is only one creator and one power in the universe? Did God create the devil? Or if the devil exists, did he create God? If there is only one creative truth behind the universe, and you accept the devil as this truth, you are then required to believe that hatred, violence, ugliness, prejudice, disease, poverty, and chaos are manifestations of this truth. And all love and goodness are false. If you accept God as the truth, then you must accept that love is the truth and that evil is false. And hatred is surely part of that evil that is false. Excuse me, swallowed wrong. For me, the truth about hatred is that hate. For me, the truth about hatred is that hate is love. That's right. I perceive hate as love energy going in the opposite direction. All hatred can be transformed by love because love is all there is, so it must include hate. The feeling and expression of hate must be reversed to head in the opposite direction. In the ancient Dhammapada, we are reminded that hating ceases by loving, not by hating. This is why St. Francis asked God for the ability to bring love to the presence of hate, and thus remove the illusion that hate exists. Basically, people who seem to be spewing hate are projecting their feeling of being unloved. They do not perceive life as loving them. When you feel unloved by life, you deny the presence of love, even though love is the elixir that holds everything together in the universe. So you take the presence of this omnipresent force called love and turn it in the opposite direction and begin to practice hatred. A person who hates is a person who feels hated and projects that feeling or belief outward. When you encounter someone who resents you, you can be certain that this person feels resented and is doing only what is possible for him to do, which is giving away what he has. If you see a person who is judgmental toward you, be assured that this person is only sending out the judgment he feels directed at him. These are examples of people believing they are not loved, sending out disagreeable and hateful energy. We know that God is love, the one power that is everywhere. So there is no place that this one power is not, including within the person who hates. This is why I say that the truth about hate is that it is love. And the way to dissolve hate, wherever it is found, is to reverse the direction and make a loving effort to convince the hater that he or she is loved. As St. Francis beseeches, where there is hatred, let me sow love. Sow, S-O-W, love. Let's look at where hatred is encountered and how one can send love to the problems that accompany the presence of hatred. Okay, so this little subchapter is called Sowing Love Toward the Hatred in the World. You can observe what appears to be hatred in the marketplace of the world in a myriad of forms. One race of people expressing their hatred by invading or mistreating other racial groups. Some people controlling food supplies while others are left to starve. A steady diet of violence force-fed to others in the form of killing, fighting, verbal abuse, and attempts at cheating. Laws passed that favor one group over another group that is hated by the majority in power. When the reins of power shift, revenge toward those who were the former haters then becomes the norm. Hatred seems to beget hatred. Into this world you are thrust with a natural inclination to love. Most of the time, when you encounter people projecting hatred toward you, you perceive yourself as having a problem. Like the problem of hatred in the form of a disgruntled government employee who won't listen and keeps you waiting endlessly. Like the problem of hatred in the form of legal action taken against you solely for the sake of obtaining some of your money. Like the problem of hate spewed by a power-hungry authority browbeating you for his own pleasure. The examples are endless. What appears to be real to you is their hatred. The common belief of those who are hateful is a firm conviction that life does not love them. Hate is their response to feeling hated. It is uncommon for a person who feels loved to project hate. Keep in mind the important biblical reminder, God is love. Evil is in the mind of man. Any hate you encounter comes from the minds of people who feel disconnected from God and the flow of love energy that exists. When you buy into their hatreds, you too are disconnected. Revenge, anger, retaliation, gloom, and all the things that you perceive as problems are mental constructs. When you make the shift to sowing love in the circumstances of your life where you are encountering hate, something unique happens. First to yourself, and then to the energy field of hate which you are in. When you start to trust love and recognize that ultimately we will be one with that love, you make a huge impact on the low energy pattern of hate. Every single time that you observe anyone in the world demonstrating hate, know with complete certainty that this person feels hated. At the same time, know that this person is loved by God, since God is love. As a witness or a recipient of that hatred, you are a spark of love. If you are able to sow love in response to hate, one of the 3 most difficult things a human being can do, which I described in an earlier chapter, you will ultimately see hate become love. Then you know with certainty that hate is only an error created by the mind of man. In our long history of tyrants and dictators, we've seen hate directed at others by humans who felt hated themselves. When divine masters came to teach us, they all said, without exception, love never fails. I believe the tyranny of hatred is being replaced by a loving consciousness. Nelson Mandela brought love and reconciliation to the hatred of apartheid, and it has slowly been dissolving. The hatreds of post-wars are gradually supplanted, and recognition of the oneness we all share with each other. And ancient enemies become brothers in peace. Of course, the illusion of hatred remains, and we have much to do in our evolution of learning to sow love where there is hatred. It is imperative for all who seek spiritual solutions to realize that only love can possibly exist. Hatred comes from those who feel hated in some way. There are 2 ways you can help them change that feeling of being hated. 1, by letting people with hateful behaviors see that you personally have only love to give them. And 2, by your seeing that God loves them unconditionally, even though they cannot recognize that truth. St. John is quoted as saying, "Love lies in this, not in our love for him, but in his love for us." Your absolute love will ultimately banish hate, because absolute love is aware of there being only one indivisible existence. You may be thinking that all of this love stuff seems then theoretical and theological to apply when you are in an encounter with someone who is directing hate your way. I assure you that the simple recognition of hatred being a form of misdirected love and a reflection that a person feels unloved is enough to disempower and release the hatred. At the end of this chapter, I will give you some specific recommendations for dealing with hatred. For now, just let in the idea that your willingness to sow love in the field of hate and to see hatred as a need for love will change the environment and eventually replace hate with love. Sowing love when hate surfaces in your immediate relationships. Here's the first secret for dealing with those close to you who exhibit hatred. First, remember that hatred is a reaction to frustrated love. Then silently repeat to yourself over and over, "Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love." You are delivering love by peacefully recognizing that the hater at some deep and quite likely unconscious level feels hated and is giving away what he or she feels inside. Absolute love cannot reside with hate, so it is your job in these moments to sow love where there is hatred. You convey to the person who is feeling unloved that no matter how difficult it may seem, you do not hate them. By doing so, you will banish hatred as well as bring a spiritual solution to this problem of hatred. The hatred you see directed outward toward you is actually pain being exposed by the person who is experiencing it. When the hate is dissolved, the pain loses its horror and torment. This line from the St. Francis prayer asks for strength to sow pain-killing love in the face of hatred. You can do the same thing even when it is directed at you by those with whom you live and work. Nothing in what I am saying here implies that you need be anyone's victim. One of the most loving things you can do in response to hate is to silently send that person a blessing and remove yourself from the energy field of fear and hatred. Gently leaving without screaming or cursing or even loudly responding sends a message to the hater that you love yourself too much to be his or her victim. Then, when they calm down, you can be there to talk when the energy field is not permeated by hate. What you want to avoid is allowing anyone to cause you to feel revulsion, disgust, or agony. Remaining in a state of love is your objective. Removing yourself from the scene is a way to keep your energy field uncontaminated and to give the hater space to reflect on their actions in private. Remember, their hatred is the torment. If you don't allow their hate to become yours, you assist the hater in nullifying their pain. When you encounter hate from anyone in your life, use those moments to remind yourself to turn to God. By getting out of your ego, which wants to retaliate and triumph over the hate, you allow yourself to sow love in those moments. Your source is God. The source of hatred is someone's misbelief that they are separate from God. Turn to your source when you are confronted with hatred, and you will be guided to send love. If someone attempts to lure you in with his or her hatred, you have a choice not to take the bait. It is like trying to pick a fight with someone who refuses to join in the fracas. The angry person is disarmed by the response of pacifism, or love. All that love looks upon is transformed. All that love looks upon is transformed to joy and beauty. Or in other words, love and hate cannot live together. Many of the so-called problems in life are the result of having to deal with others who bring hatred into the energy field. Take note of how much of the hatred infects your home, workplace, family, and friends, relationships, and even your health. Then ask yourself if you contribute to the hatred by hating the haters. You see, none of this is a problem if you practice what St. Francis begged God to help him with in this line of his prayer. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. The challenge is not to allow yourself to be tangled in a web of hatred that perpetuates more hatred. Even if you are completely surrounded by this kind of energy and you find it physically impossible to remove yourself, you can make a conscious decision to not think anything but loving thoughts, silently reciting, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Will transform the situation. How? Problems are experienced in your thoughts first. If you have love there, you will not have room for hate, since they cannot live together in the same place. Becoming conscious of your thoughts in the face of hatred and being committed to staying in thoughts of love is the spiritual solution. It takes time, but gradually and surely, love will transform that hate into joy and beauty. Sowing seeds of love for yourself where there is self-hate. If you have places within your heart where hatred for yourself resides, it is incumbent upon you to let love replace this hatred as well. Sowing love where hatred resides means any place where you encounter hate, even deep within yourself. Consider these words of St. Francis. I have been all things unholy. If God can work through me, he can work through anyone. Imagine the man who bore the stigmatic wounds of Christ, who tamed wild animals with his divine presence, who healed the sick and preached unconditional love for all, saying, I have been all things unholy. If it is true for St. Francis, surely you can take a look at all of your unholy actions and thoughts and recognize the need to forgive yourself and replace that self-hatred with self-love. Everything you have ever done for which you may carry around self-contempt is in the past. So don't spend any of today entertaining self-hate. Remember that the truth about hate is it is love. only it is going in the wrong direction. Shift your gears into reverse and begin moving your thoughts in the direction of love. Forgiveness is the means to accomplishing this reversal. I have written so much in this book and others on the significance of self-love and self-forgiveness that I choose not to replicate that here. I include this brief section because sowing love where there is hatred applies wherever hatred appears. All of your errors of the past, mistakes in judgment, and self-perceived flaws occurred because they had to. You needed to be there in that darkness in order to be able to transcend it. As for your flaws, that is an insult to God, plain and simple. You are a divine piece of God, flawless, since God is good and all that is created of and by God is also God. No mistakes, no flaws, no one any better than anyone else. Apply Emerson's observation as your antidote to self-perceived flaws. Emerson says, never lose an opportunity of seeing anything that is beautiful. For beauty is God's handwriting, a wayside sacrament. Welcome it in every fair face, in every fair sky, in every fair flower, and thank God for it as a cup of blessing. That includes your fair face as well. Look upon yourself as an ingredient in that cup of blessing and let love be there within you for yourself. This is truly one of those opportunities of seeing something that is beautiful. And here are some suggestions for sowing love where there is hatred. He says, I recommend that you practice what I do each and every time I find myself in a situation where hatred is present. I repeat the line from the St. Francis prayer, where there is hatred, let me sow love. Believe it or not, the effortless act of repeating the line to myself allows me to shift my inner dialogue away from the hatred and onto thoughts of love. This prayerful reminder also empowers me to take actions upon love, rather than my ego's inclination to fight hatred with my own hatred. After any episode where hatred has been directed at you, or when you have been a silent witness to hatred, don't allow the incident to linger in your mind. Furthermore, resist the temptation to discuss the episode or make it the focus of your conversation. Many people who do not themselves send out hatred seem to enjoy discussing the hateful ways of others and tend to make that the focal point of almost all their discussions. On and on they go, relating what someone else said, how terrible it was, and how it affected everyone around them. Meanwhile, the present moment environment is reduced to one of hatred by proxy. When you talk about another person, make it a serious effort to send or direct loving support to their energy field and encourage others to think about it and send loving energy to those who seem lost in their hatred. Be the person who promotes the idea that people can change. Ask anyone in your family and circle of friends to direct loving, prayerful guidance toward those who are stuck in the torment of their hatred. When you have private conversations, make the focus of your conversation love rather than hatred for the hater. In the moments when you are not witnessing hatred, you can also sow love. Deciding to pray for a person who is filled with hatred makes just as much sense as praying for someone who is ill or impoverished or injured in some way. Next, he says, unobtrusively enter hatred energy fields with love. Without ever having to identify yourself, you have opportunities to use your love energy to halt the passions of hatred. When you live with love in your heart, you radiate outward a faster, more spiritual energy. You can direct this higher energy of love towards situations of hate. I recall being in a park one afternoon with two of my children when a father's anger toward his small son erupted. He shouted and threatened this little boy with violence. I moved immediately into action, not to confront the irate father, but to move closer and send him loving energy. I enveloped him in an imaginary cloud of kindness. I moved into his energy field. I saw him begin to soften, partly because he noticed me and was embarrassed by his conduct, but mostly because I was bringing the higher, faster energy of love into a space where the lower, slower energy of hate was present. This higher energy was impacting his conduct even before he noticed my presence. You've heard the expression, let's send him some positive energy. This is not fiction. It is just another way of sowing love where there is hatred. You have the power to use your loving energy this way at any time. Okay, and then he says, whenever you encounter hate, remind yourself that the person directing that hate outward is feeling hated. This will ignite within you the desire to ease the torment of feeling hated with the warmth of your love. Whenever any of our children say or do things that indicate feeling hate, both my wife and I attempt to reassure them that they are loved, that they are deserving of love. Little reminders after the air has cleared, such as a hug or a pat on the shoulder or a statement like, you know, Mom loves you and so does God, always, even when you are angry. No long lecture, just a gentle reminder that they are loved. In the midst of a serious argument, when hatred is being projected, remind yourself that God loves everyone involved. If you can somehow convey this to all the combatants, including yourself, that alone is enough to diffuse hate and simultaneously bring a spiritual solution to the situation. Next, he says, make a deliberate commitment to spend an unselfish hour with someone less fortunate. Within 3 blocks of your home, there is someone who feels desperate and helpless. Most often, they do not know that the source of their anguish is in an absence of feeling loved. Most often, they feel unloved by the world at large and by the individuals in their lives. You can be the instrument of peace, sowing love for both the person and yourself. You don't have to give them money or food or anything material. Just the wonderful act of sowing love creates a spiritual solution to this problem, as well as nourishing your own soul. Let's see how close we are here. Next, he says, never take hatred personally. Sowing love where there is hatred means reminding yourself that you are love, and that is all you have to give away. Consequently, anyone who visits his or her hatred upon you is unable to reach your soul, because hate cannot live where love is present. Your best method for deflecting hatred is to be conscious of how you react to hatred. If you immediately find yourself offended by the conduct of the hater, you have taken it personally and allowed your ego into the fray. When you respond to the hater with the words, you feel, then you have put the emphasis where it belongs and not taken it personally. Because personally speaking, you know that you are sowing love here and the hate has nothing to do with you. Imagine someone says to you, I hate you. You are so wishy-washy and you never give me credit for anything. All you ever do is criticize me. You might respond with something like, you feel that I don't give you enough credit and it really makes you angry. I want you to know that I think you are able and talented, and I'll work at telling you so more frequently. You have not taken anything personally, and you have responded to hate with love, a spiritual solution. And even if the hatred continues, you keep your resolve to never, ever take anyone's hatred personally. That's good advice. Okay, now he says, make time to join into the lives of those who send out hate. Okay. When you get to know the people who seem to be filled with hate, you'll discover that they want the same things you do. They want to feel loved, and that their external manifestations of hatred are nothing but a cry for love. Years ago, one of my teenage daughters was rebelling in anger and often with hatred toward any and all authority figures, and particularly toward me. I asked her if we could set aside one evening to spend together at dinner, to which she grudgingly consented. Those few hours of my spending time talking with rather than at her, and taking an interest in her life from a authority figure position made a huge difference in our relationship. By getting to know someone, by spending time with them, by making a little extra effort to sow some love toward anyone from whom you feel hatred might be emanating, you create an atmosphere of openness where love has a chance to bloom. This is not only true of family members. You can go to lunch with the person who is most disrespectful to you at work, and in 1 hour of just being together, you'll diffuse much of the hate. The word prejudice comes from a Latin word meaning to prejudge. To prejudge is to form an opinion without any contact. It is done before contact. With contact, you embrace the light that you both share, and the pre disappears, as does the judgment. Next, he says, use a letter as a means of sending love. Very often it seems impossible to reach someone who is full of hate. The more you attempt to talk with them about it, the more entrenched they become in their beliefs that they have no other choice than to be the way they are. These encounters frequently deteriorate into arguments, and loud, unpleasant, intolerant exchanges are often the result. I recommend that you make your feelings known in a letter format, so the reader is unable to argue back with their invested hatred. Even if they disagree with everything you write in the letter, make an effort to let them know that they are important, worthwhile, intelligent, and most of all, loved by you and by God. But also include how you feel when their hate is directed at you, and why you frequently remove yourself from the immediate vicinity of hatred. By sending love in a written form, you don't fan the sparks of hatred, which flare up when words are flying back and forth in heated exchanges. This is one more opportunity for you to reach down inside your soul and sow love where there is hatred. Next, try being kinder and still kinder as your response. One of the best ways I've discovered to sow love where there is hatred is to be generous and giving in my response. Send flowers to someone who has been verbally abusive. Mail a box of candy or send a gift certificate in response to hatred. Over the years, I have had the experience on many occasions of people ordering products, sending me a check, and then a week or so later discovering that the person had insufficient funds to cover the costs of the materials I had purchased and mailed. There was a time when I reacted to this experience of being defrauded with complaints about how irresponsible and immoral this was. But about 5 years ago, I did an about-face. Every time this happened to me, I mailed the person a free gift of an autographed book and requested payment for the bounced check. The response was amazing. About 98% of the people who received a free gift in response to their check not only returned the money, but took the time to write a lovely letter of apology as well. This was in contrast to the less than 40% who made good on their bad checks previously. The old saying goes, kill them with kindness. I prefer connect to them with love and generosity, or as St. Francis would say, sow love. S-O-W, sow love. Okay, next, forgive yourself and look upon yourself with love. Always remember that you are connected eternally to God. You are a divine creation, and you do not want to fear your divinity any longer. You do not have to perform to anyone else's standard to be loved. You are loved unconditionally. You do not have to be mistake-free. You are always loved. You do not have to win. You are loved regardless of the outcome or the score. All the reasons that you may have adopted to hate yourself are the result of a rigid belief that your ego is the dominant force in your life. Your ego believes you are what you do, what you have, what others think of you. Your ego believes you are separate from everyone else and separate from God. Thus, that ego is always judging, evaluating, and comparing you to others. When you don't measure up, you engage in self-contempt. Then you review how many times you failed and turn those self-perceived failures into self-hate. As a spiritual being, you do not have to perform, compare, win, or anything else. Your worthiness is a given. You are a piece of God, always connected. Remind yourself of this truth whenever you resort to any form of self-hatred. Forgive yourself, and you are sowing love in your energy field, as well as providing yourself a spiritual solution to the problem of self-contempt. He says, this concludes my suggestions for learning to sow love where there is hatred. I know in my heart that no person can love another unless he loves humanity first. The ability to sow love stems from this inner sense of feeling connected to, rather than separate from, all living creatures, all of humanity, and God as well. An emancipated slave who one would think had every reason to be full of hate exemplifies the message of this chapter and the request of St. Francis. His name was Booker T. Washington, and he put it this way: I shall allow no man to belittle my soul by making me hate him. Here was a man who went to work at the age of 9, worked as a janitor to obtain an education, and later headed up the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. He refused to hate. Why? Because he said hatred belittles the soul. Sow love and enjoy the bouquet of respect that adorns your soul. Okay, and I'm also going to share chapter 12, Where There Is Darkness, Light. It starts off with a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, there is no object so foul that intense light will not make it beautiful. Okay, so Wayne Dyer says, this line from the St. Francis prayer asks for the strength and ability to bring light to all who feel ugly or perceive the world as shallow, evil, or a dark place. As Emerson suggests in the above display quote, the intensity of your light can make anything beautiful. When you live in darkness, you are immersed in a world that does not allow you to see the beauty that surrounds you. One of the highest qualities of self-actualized people is their ability to see beauty everywhere and to source life from the presence of beauty. Let me bring light is another way to saying, let me illustrate my presence and my attitude that there is beauty everywhere. In many ways, bringing light to the presence of darkness is a way to bring a spiritual solution to a problem. Darkness symbolizes the inability to experience the true nature of our world. As John Keats describes in his famous poetic lines, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. In darkness, one remains ignorant of both beauty and truth, since they are synonymous. The decision to bring light to darkness opens up a whole new world of beauty appreciation and sets you free of any misperception you might have about life being a dark experience. You may recall from my earlier descriptions that everything is energy, and that light represents the faster, higher energy of spirit, which nullifies experiences of darkness. The ability to have light just show up eradicates experiences of darkness from your life and the lives of those you touch as well. Subchapter, Light is Energy. Everything is vibrating, even if your senses tell you that some things are solid. Light itself is an energy, a very fast frequency that conforms to the spiritual laws I've been citing throughout this book. When you bring the higher, faster frequencies to the presence of the lower, slower vibrations, those problems are instantly dissolved because darkness is merely the absence of light. When you introduce light into a dark area, the darkness simply disappears. If you enter a dark place with a lamp, the light falls on everyone who is near you. You don't have to announce, "Here I come with the light." Everyone is automatically aware of the presence of the light, and darkness is dissolved. Once again, a problem is no longer a problem when we bring the faster, higher vibrations of spirit to bear on the illusions, including the illusion of darkness. Think about the sun as a source of light. It is always shining. Clouds come along to obscure the sun, yet the sun is still shining. The sun appears to go down at night, but that is an illusion. It continues to shine at all times. The sun appears to be the source of light, but it is really a reflection of the true light, which is God or spirit. The highest energy is spirit, which gives light to the material world, including the sun. Remember that this true light is always shining, just as the sun shines perpetually, even when you don't see it. Then you can open yourself to accessing the divine light in what appears to be darkness, which can never truly exist. The nullifier of that darkness is always shining and available to you whenever you choose. It's as simple as remembering that light and dark cannot coexist. The power of light is that darkness must absolutely vanish when you bring in light. Suggestions for bringing light to darkness. Practice being an appreciator of beauty. Make the choice to notice the beauty which graces your day. Throughout the day, stop to gaze and feel gratitude for moments of beauty in your life. This may take effort when you are experiencing dark times, but it will help develop the habit of leaving the darkness behind. Beauty appreciation is the result of a habitual way of thinking light as often as possible. Find something for which you can feel gratitude rather than resentment. When this becomes your habit, you will automatically bring this sense of beauty appreciation to all life circumstances. He says, become familiar with the literature of inspiration about those who have overcome darkness in their lives. Let's not do that one. Send out white light and bathe others in it. Remember, everything is energy. Solid, sound, light, thoughts, spirit are movements, waves that vibrate to a certain frequency. You can be an emissary of light and help others to eradicate darkness in their lives. Think light and also practice meditating and visualizing the white, clear, pure light enveloping anyone you choose. If you doubt your ability to accomplish this, or if you feel that sending light through your thoughts and meditation is impossible, then that will be your experience. Shift your inner consciousness to the thought that no one knows enough to be a pessimist. Then you will be able to transmit the light at the highest, fastest vibrations, where anything is possible. I practice sending white light, as does my wife, on a regular basis. If any of our children are out late, we remind each other to bathe them in light and send them the energy of spirit, which is love, and to let that loving light energy sweep over them. We then have a picture in our mind of light rather than darkness and danger. I have also studied auras, which are light energies that surround us, much like an electrical energy field. These auras can be read and altered by the ways in which we practice spirituality. In fact, Kirlian photography shows an aura of light surrounding living things, usually unseen by the naked eye. If this light is there, we can alter it with our thoughts and emotions. Then why not realize that we can use our thoughts to send this pure light to help protect anyone from the darkness? Try it with a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing. Keep your thoughts centered on light and what you want, rather than dark and what you don't want. He says, practice seeing the light within you. Bring light thoughts to every circumstance of darkness. It is so common to do precisely the opposite. When you do, you attract more of the illusions of the dark. For example, if your thoughts are on how bad a situation is, how terrible everything seems to be going, and all you can visualize is things getting worse, you are literally attracting darkness into your life. Similarly, if you approach someone who is experiencing a dark episode with thoughts of fear and anguish for them, what you are doing is identifying with the darkness. It may seem to be proper to comfort those in darkness by emulating their shadow thoughts, but you will help to eliminate that darkness altogether by bringing light to the present moment. Empathy is a wonderful high-energy quality, and I encourage you to extend thoughts of compassion and love to those who are experiencing darkness. However, I encourage you not to confuse empathy with reinforcing darkness. Think thoughts of light and love and enter the darkness with that energy. Your light energy will lighten the darkness. You can emanate light when you know that the darkness is an illusion, since God's light is always shining, and that thoughts of despair and anguish are what create the illusion of darkness. Extend compassion and know that all is for good. As I have said many times in this book, we cannot go where God is not, and where God is, all is well. Let's see. Repeat to yourself one of the most important passages for bringing light to darkness. The truth shall set you free. Stay in truth. Truly you will come to see the freedom of the light when you stay in truth and bring that truth to all you encounter. When you practice deception of any kind, you invite a contaminant into your system. You cloud up the light and invite movement toward the darkness. Others may complain that you do not tell them what they want to hear. Nevertheless, be full of resolve when it comes to what you bring to anyone else's darkness. When others know that you will no longer sugarcoat your responses in times of difficulty, they will want to hear from you. I have appeared on many television talk shows over the past 26 years and have seen firsthand how many major entertainment personalities travel with an entourage whose primary responsibility seems to be to tell the star what he or she wants to hear. Their paid staffs of hangers-on tell them how brilliantly they performed, even if they were dull, witless, and self-indulgent on the set. I'm certain that in times of difficulties, these stars will go to someone in their lives whom they know they can trust for an honest response. It was people such as my wife who told me point blank at various times in my life that I was drinking the wrong liquids, eating the wrong foods, gaining some weight, being too aggressive or self-indulgent, being too focused on my money, or losing sight of my purpose. These truth tellers brought the light back into my life where shadows were slowly creeping in. The truth is the light. Practice this truth by helping others and always be totally truthful with yourself. You may not immediately send out all darkness from your life, such as immoral or toxic behaviors. But if you are totally honest with yourself and admit your frailties despite your outer persona, gradually and surely you will make the changes toward a faster, higher spiritual energy in which those shadows cannot survive. No one said it better than William Shakespeare. To thine own self be true. The request of St. Francis to bring light to darkness is a powerful way of enhancing a spiritual solution to every problem. Light is pure, moral, clear, and without deception. Walk this path and watch darkness dissolve. There is no other choice. Darkness cannot survive for even 1 second when light is introduced. Okay, so that's my reading for tonight. Again, the book is There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem by Wayne Dyer. I think the whole book is fabulous. I really liked it. Liked it again this time when I read it. So I encourage you to get the whole book and read it yourself if you choose. Thank you for joining us tonight. Namaste.